Welcome to Growth with Portia, a weekly conversation for your personal and professional growth. Here is your host, Portia Booker.
Hey listeners, welcome to Group Portia. I'm your host, Portia Booker, and yes, this is my real name. So, question for you, did you bring your curious mind today? If so, I don't want to keep you waiting. Let's dive in. So, I got to share a little secret with y'all. So, I had the opportunity to clean out my closet, and I parted ways with a few outfits. Now, in a sense, you can say we got a divorce, but I never signed papers for marriage unless the tags on the clothes count or the receipts. I don't know. Let me know. But a few of those pieces I noticed I saved for when the quote unquote time was right. But I realized most of those outfits were picked for me and not ones I picked for myself, which made the process of letting go of these pieces a lot easier because I no longer identified with them. So, question for my listeners today: what outfits are you holding on to for a special occasion that are taking up space, not in just your closet, but also in your life? Let that sink in. So, today I am joined by an individual on a mission to help women build their style from the inside out and express their full authenticity through their wardrobe. So welcome our personal stylist, Missy Baker. How you doing today, Missy?
Oh, I'm doing fabulous, Portia. That was such a great intro into what we're going to talk about today.
Yes, look, Missy, you know I always love to start off my conversations with gratitude. What are you grateful for today?
Oh, I love that. I mean, I can make a list super long because I have a great gratitude practice, but man, like the weather that we had this weekend in Cleveland, like the beauty that God put out there for us. Oh, like it was fantastic and being able to spend that time just appreciating this beautiful world that we get to live in. It's so cool. So that's what I'm sinking into this morning. I got the sun rays coming in here in my office, and it's going to be another beautiful day.
Missy, you know, I can definitely relate. I mean, I don't remember a time in November, yet alone, that we've been given an extended quote unquote late summer, spring ish, where I can walk outside and wear just a hoodie and flip flops if I want to, or I can, you know, if I wanted to wear shorts, I could. But then people might think that, hey, it's November, it's not July, but that's for a whole another day. But I can definitely relate, you know, just being able to enjoy the extended warmth, the extra light, because let's be honest, here in Ohio, I think sometimes we get covered over by a secret umbrella as known as the cloud formation here. So we don't get enough
Yes.
sun. And I've been that person who, you know, little digression. I had the opportunity a couple weekends ago to take a spur of the moment trip to
Mm.
Pennsylvania, to Erie, Pennsylvania. And I went to Paris Isle State Park. And,
Ah.
you know, when you drive there, it's like an hour and 30 minutes from Cleveland. And, you know, during my drive, I love long drives. But when I
Mhm.
got to the state park, I mean, it was probably like 70 degrees there, 70, close to 80. And just being able to sit out in nature, watch the you know the lake, you know, the waves, and then there was a
Mhm.
lighthouse, and just being able to
Yeah.
just sit and just be. You know, how
Yeah.
often do we give ourselves that permission to revel in the present moment? And that was
Mm.
something that I learned this year alone, is the importance of being present. So I'm just grateful.
Amen to that. Amen to that. And I've been to that park. It is absolutely gorgeous.
I know. I saw people with the like little bikes, the little car
Hmm.
looking bikes where people,
Yeah.
there's four people that can power it. And there was a
Yeah.
guy, little digression, there was a guy who I'm like, man, you win dad of the year. He's on rollerblades. he's pushing two of his daughters in one of those
Oh,
double like wheeled carts or whatever.
yeah.
Then his other two daughters, it gets even better. His other two daughters, one of them is riding rollerblades like him, and then the other one is on a bike with training wheels. I said, whoa, like
That is dad
how?
of the year. Dad of the year.
And then when I saw them come back, he had all of them piled into this little, like cart
Because they were
thing.
tired. Yeah.
Yeah. And then he has the bike. It was so funny. It almost looked like he was sitting on the bike while on his rollerblades still pushing this
Oh,
cart with all of his girls. And it was the cutest thing. I said, you know what? You
mm,
went dad of the year. Dad of the
yeah.
year.
Yeah. I say that, and my husband will listen to this and be like, wait a minute.
Dad of the year, totally. Missy, I gotta ask this. I mean, you have had a unique journey to
Mm,
find your way from being in the office as an engineer for a decade
mm,
to now you're helping individuals to, no pun intended, clean out their closets. So, Missy, what did it take for you to make that pivot from sitting in an office to now you're sitting in people's homes helping them to find their authenticity through their wardrobe?
oh, well, I mean, how much time you got? No. Uh, there's so many layers to this story, but really what it was, I, from a very young age, decided I was good at math and science. I could be an engineer. Engineers make a lot of money. It's a well-respected career. And I decided that, and I just stuck with it. It's what I'm gonna do. And at the core of that, also besides the smarts of, being able to do it, was like I can help people. I want to help people. And that has been the like through thread of everything that I've ever wanted to do. I wanted to be able to help people. And then what happened for me really that was a huge wake up call was when my mom passed away. And I know you've talked a lot about grief and grief journeys on this show. And that was about what, 8, 9 years ago now, 9 years ago. And that was the first wake up call. I can remember being at work after she had passed real recently and sitting there doing some stuff and being like, why am I here? And I never had that like feeling consciously. I think it was there, but why am I here? And what I thought that meant was, why am I here in this role? I need to take a different role because I was in like a manufacturing site. I was a process engineer. So I was like, oh, maybe that means it's time to take a different role in the company. So I started working my way up that ladder. And every role that I took, there was a part of me that was like, is this it? Is this it? This is all I got? Like, really? And that culmination year over year over year really came to a head after my daughter was born. So my daughter came into our lives and she is amazing. And I just wanted to spend all of my time with her. And I couldn't do that with working in the career that I was building for myself. And I found myself in this place where I was being pulled between, do I get to spend time with my daughter or do I spend the extra time? Because it wasn't just 40 hours a week. It was this extra time that I needed to really excel and be good at what I was doing because I don't ever do anything like halfway. I want to do it to the best of my ability. And I'm like, I can't be in on weekends and nights and do what I used to do to develop the relationships to get the work done that I needed to get done. And I actually credit, and this is where we're going to go into the spirituality of it all. Credit my mom. She's been with me since she passed. I mean, I see her all the time. It took a while for me to learn how to connect with her, but man, I was really, really miserable at one point in the summer of 2019. And I remember just being like, Mom, I don't know what to do. I wish I could talk to you. I think I need to quit my job, but I'm so scared. And I mean, I was driving when I was doing this. And a sign for me is a monarch butterfly. And I kid you not, I was like, I think I need to quit my job. boom, right at my windshield flies this monarch butterfly. And I went, oh my gosh, Mom, was that you? Like, are you sure? Boom, second one comes in. I'm like, okay, I get it. And so that was when I was like, okay, I'm going to leave my job. I didn't know exactly what I was going to do. I was like, well, I'm going to be home with my daughter and we'll figure it out. And then you fast forward a little bit into the beginning of 2020, in the before times of 2020, before we all knew what was going to happen. I had met this person on Instagram, been following her for a little while, and she is a stylist, personal stylist out in California, and she offered this course, her six-figure stylist masterclass or something like that. It was a styling certification program for heart-centered styling, and she did things in a little bit of a different way. And I had been intrigued by her, and I felt this intuitive pull, and I was like, I need to do this class. I don't know why I need to do this class, but I need to do this class. And I did it, and I didn't start my business right away because I was like, okay, well, I have this. I don't know what I'm going to do with it yet. But by the time October rolled around, I'm like, okay, we're going to go into this styling space. This is what I truly am feeling called to do, to help women find who they are, and then express that in their style. And so it's been quite the journey, and it's definitely one of those things where people are like, wait, you have a degree in chemical engineering and you're playing in fashion? But I mean, it's so much more than that, and I wouldn't trade the journey for anything.
Well, and Missy, first of all, kudos to you for being open to the messages from your mom, because let's be honest, when we're in that season of, okay, I'm tired of this, and you identified it, is this it? There has to be more to Missy's life than just working my way up this corporate ladder. And now that my two-legged person is here that I want to spend X amount more time with and kind of disconnect where I've really already disconnected from this realm. So now let's find a pivot here. Let's find a, no pun intended, the next sewing needle to stitch things together, right? And
Yes.
so you've done that. You were able to recognize that window of opportunity, even though it was a little thin, thin line, because you're like, okay, I'm just going to take the leap. I don't know what it's going to look like, but I do know that whatever is going to come into my wheelhouse, I'm going to make it work no matter what.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so we're going to take our first quick break right here on Group Portia. Everybody stick with us. We've got a great topic ahead. All right, everybody, welcome back right here on Group Portia. I'm doing remotely with our personal stylist, Missy Baker, and we were just having a great conversation, of course, about how she made the transition from being a chemical engineer to now helping women to have the wardrobe of their dreams, to say the least. Missy, you touched on it in the first segment about, the transition of your mom. So let's talk about grief here for a moment. What did it take for you, Missy, to process letting go of the identity that you had of being that chemical engineer to transition into the space of full-time businesswoman?
Oh, that, I think there's some of that sometimes I'm still letting go of, because it's been what, 3 years, and it's a whole process. But man, the biggest fear there, because there was so much fear. There was so much fear of, oh, what are people going to think of me? Are people going to approve? And I think honestly, that's also what led me into this like styling path, because we do the same thing with our clothes, but that's a whole nother thing. Of starting to decide that my opinion mattered most. What I thought about me mattered most. How I felt mattered, because by the end of the time that I was in that career, I was miserable. I was miserable. And, when I was in college, I was so excited to get out and be able to do a job where I was helping people and using my skills and being paid well, that I could have never imagined getting to a point where I was in that crowd of people, which I know so many people can relate to, where the alarm would go off in the morning and I'm like, oh, I got to get up and do this all over again. And that pain got so bad that I was desperate to do something. And when I got that, like those signs that, yeah, I gotta quit my job. Oh, like that was like, I was like, okay, I don't want to, because what's gonna happen to me, But a phrase that really helped me through that is leap and the net will appear. And like sometimes it can seem very reckless from the outside, and there was points where I thought as I was doing it, oh my gosh, this is reckless, and what I've come to realize as I've worked through it, and man, I mean, talk about healing work. I do I do all of the things. I've had so many people that have supported me through this, through energy work and therapy and all the things, to realize that that's been conditioning that I needed to shed. So that was a conditioning of, oh, I can be successful on my own terms. I don't need to look at success as the world describes it, which I was. I mean, I was. I'd had what, 4 or 5 different promotions in my career. I was moving up the corporate ladder. Had I wanted to continue there, I'm sure I could have gotten to the director level, beyond into the like corporate realms of things, because number one, I mean, I was good at what I would do, and number two, I mean, I was a woman in the industry, and women engineers are not exactly, I mean, they're more common nowadays than they used to be, but like that still was a huge advantage for me as well. I could have probably had whatever I wanted in that world, but I was like, oh, but am I going to sacrifice that for my family, my happiness, just for a paycheck? And so, I mean, it's a process, and I've had several times where I've had things come back after I left, um, for like job offers that came at times where, financially speaking, probably would have been a really like good idea for me to take. And I was like, I was like, no, no. Like when I started to weigh it down on paper, and the only pro was, oh, a consistent paycheck that I can count on, but I'm going to be miserable. It was all the cons. It's like, oh, it's not worth it. Like, it's not worth it to me. And that continued relentless pursuit of feeling good has been what's helped me get through that grief of losing that respect and dignity that like comes telling somebody like I've got a degree in chemical engineering. And I mean, people go, whoa. And also the realization that I still have that degree. I can still tell you I'm a chemical engineer. I can still talk to you about the way a lot of things work, because all that stuff is still there. It doesn't mean just because I'm not working in it doesn't mean that all that work went away. It's I'm just not applying it in the same way in my life. So that helps as well.
Missy, I gotta ask this. You hinted on the crossroad that I think a lot of us business owners reach, where the money that we want to make does not, no pun intended, add up to all of the services that we have rendered.
Mm-hmm.
And when you are faced with that, hey, Missy, we've got this wonderful opportunity for you to make 200 something thousand, for our company, you get the 401k and HSA and all the bells and whistles, right?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
When you're faced with that ultimatum, Missy, what keeps you from diving into that space of comfort and staying in the lane of uncomfortability to live the life that you aspire to have?
That is such a great question. And the first thing I'm going to say is that neither choice is wrong. Neither choice is wrong. And, for me, I know I'm very, very lucky. I'm married to a husband that does well. So that factors into it as well. But, I look at that and it is making that pros and cons list of what's worth it and knowing what my values are. And I've come to a point where I can't do it. I can't do something just for the money. It is not in my values anymore. It is not in my DNA anymore. And so listing those things out and being like, well, what other pros can I find in this besides the money? Because it's almost like somebody kind of dangling a carrot in front of you, like, you really you want the money. And you know, there's a part of my brain that wants to do it. I'm like, well, yeah, like with another consistent paycheck, then I could do this and do this and this. And I'm like, wait, I'll be right back in the same place. Even if I could find the magical job that was only 40 hours a week and still paid me at this high level, then if I'm going to be building my business in the side, when am I going to be spending time with my daughter? And oh wait, then that means I'm going to have a boss again. And I mean, I've had great bosses. I also had some terrible bosses. Like I've had the awesome ones that empower you, and I've had the ones that micromanage you. I've had both. I'm like, you're kind of like, well, let me roll the dice on that. And I'm like, nope, I can't do that. It's against the DNA that I have now, the values that I have now, to put my happiness first, because I know I'm a better mom, I'm a better wife, I'm a better friend when I'm filling me up first. And I can't do that if I'm taking something just so that I can have money. So that's my advice in that category.
And Missy, thank you for shedding light on that, because I know that some people have been in that boat, right? Especially now because we are coming to the end of the year, and obviously year end tying up of books and getting ready for tax season in January. So I can definitely see where people fall into that boat of, I need this, but we have to weigh out what truly matters. And you hit the nail on the head. The value. What do you value most? Do you value the dollar bill? Do you value the flexibility of, okay, on Wednesday, I'm not working on Wednesday. I've worked for the past 8 Wednesdays in a row, and I'm just going to take this Wednesday to just spend time with my daughter, or sew something, or go through your own wardrobe and say, okay, I'm gonna wear this next week to this event, or me and my husband have date night coming up on this Friday, so I'm gonna wear this instead of that. So you're able to really blend. I like to say blend, because balance to me is this or versus blend is this and. And
I like harmony for that. That's what I think of, harmony.
Yeah, you're able to harmonize and blend the life that you have always wanted to have. And so, Missy, for our listeners who are tuning in, if they are in that boat where they're trying to pick between the two, right? What tip can you leave with them that they can do today if they're sitting in that boat of, the money's not coming in, but it's really not about the money or chasing their passion? What tip can you leave with them today?
I think sitting down and spending some time getting really serious with yourself of, what are my values? What are my values? And doing that exercise, because that's not something that we're taught to do. Writing those down, journaling on that, letting things kind of flow. I know when I'm getting in the flow with journaling, my handwriting goes from my nice, neat handwriting to this, like, I can't write the words out fast enough kind of thing. And that's when you're getting into the good stuff. But writing those out and looking at those, and then looking at the decisions that you got to make. And sometimes taking that part-time job or even that full-time job, depending on your life and your lifestyle, is going to be the right choice for you at that time, even if it is for that money, depending on what your financial, stability looks like. Because I mean, obviously, if you need to stay, in shelter and you need to, have a place to live, sure, it might be that. And then listing those values, how do I work those values in? How do I look at that? And how then do I have a plan for the future that this is a temporary thing? Because anything that we do can be a temporary thing. You can do it for a year or two, figure out what else you're going to do. But moving towards living in those values and whatever that looks like for you, and then trusting yourself, trusting that gut intuition, and using those values to help you sink into that, and what feels good, what feels right, and knowing that you can't really make a mistake. Like, whatever you end up deciding, you can always choose again later. So
I love how you mentioned too, Missy, about things being temporary. I think we think in our mind that once we've been occupying a space for whether it's 3 months, 6 months, a year, 5 years, that it creates a sense of permanence. But truthfully, we have to always remember that the only two things that are certain in life are death and life in itself. Not so much of us occupying this space of, like what you mentioned, of being this chemical engineer, to now you've pivoted into another type of engineer of helping people get their wardrobe together. But we'll continue more on that throughout the conversation. Well, we're going to take another quick break right here on Good Portia. Everybody stick with us. We will be right back. All right, everybody, welcome back right here on Group Portia. I'm joined remotely with our personal stylist, Missy Baker, and we were just having a continued conversation, of course, about success, pivoting, and of course, just taking that leap of faith. So, Missy, for our listeners who are tuning in, if they are interested in connecting with you and learning more about you, or maybe they need someone to stitch some outfits together for them, is there a website or a social media handle you can share with us today?
Yes, of course. The two easiest places to find me. One is on Instagram, and there I'm at Soul to Style, SOUL .to.style, and you will find me there. I do all kinds of fun stuff there. And then also, if you want to kind of go more old school, I have my website, www.soul-style.com. So that is my website there. You can have a link there to reach out, send me an email, ask me any questions that you want on there. And those are the places you'll find me hanging out.
Excellent. I love the soul to style, because it truly is a soulful experience when you finally find what I call your love language in your wardrobe. And so, Missy, I got to ask this, walk us through how you help your clients, no pun intended, part ways with outfits and pieces that no longer serve them, in order for them to find their authentic expression through their wardrobe. I mean, I'm sure there's lots of emotions that come up, right? There's pieces that are heirlooms that have some weight of years and that. So walk us through this process, Missy, of helping your clients find purpose from being a prisoner of their wardrobe.
I love how you said that. Prisoner of their wardrobe. I might have to steal that. But it never starts where everybody expects us to start, right? When we talk about doing style or cleaning out your closet, we think we're going to dive right in and we're going to jump into, okay, what do I get rid of? That's what we usually do, right? That's what we've done probably since we were little. I mean, I can remember sitting on the floor in my room with my mom and trying things on, because obviously kids grow like weeds, and I do this with my own daughter now, like what fits and what doesn't, right? But as we progress into adulthood, yes, there is so much power in what fits, what doesn't fit anymore, and that kind of stuff. But I take it a step back first, and we dive into a lot of visualization work. I have some meditative work that I do with my clients to really help them visualize what is, what is my style? Where am I going in my life? How do I want to feel? And we walk through that process together. I walk them through that. And then we write down everything that you see and visualize in the meditation. And more times than not, it's stuff that, oh my gosh, like I never thought I could wear that. Or, well, I love that when somebody else wears it, but I don't think I could wear that. And so that's why we do that first, because if we start doing the closet cleanse from a conscious place only, we aren't pulling out that soul piece, which is the whole name of my business, Soul to Style, is that embodiment really of what we do, the work that we do. We tap in first to that subconscious, that soul level of what do you desire? And then when we create that blueprint, when we go to the closet, it does make it easier. There are, though, those emotions that come up. I think one thing that people don't understand a lot of times is how much, not just physical space that clothing takes up, but that energetic space that it takes up in our minds, in our physical space, just all of those things, that energetics of those clothes that we are constantly going, swiping by in the morning when you're getting dressed. That's what's contributing to the not being able to find anything to wear in the morning. But when we start with that blueprint and we kind of look at, okay, this is what it could be like, this is what I could feel like, then when we get to the closet, it's like, oh, I understand why I need to get rid of this stuff. Now, we still come up across some things sometimes. I know you mentioned like sentimental pieces. I haven't actually, and none of my rules are hard and fast rules anyways, but there's an exception for that. Like, I mean, I've still got my wedding dress. It's actually in a box and is preserved. It's not something that I'm going to probably wear again. I know it's actually something that doesn't fit my body currently, but I'm keeping it because it's my wedding dress and it's not time for me to get, part with that. I'll know when that time is, and I'll know what to do with it. So there's some of those like sentimental pieces. You're like, I can't get rid of it right now. That's okay. We give ourselves grace for that. I usually have people move it to someplace if they can, if they have the option to move it to a different closet, to do that. So it's not in the main closet, because I want people's main closet to have things they're obsessed about, that they want to wear and they can wear right now in their in their current body. And it's really a grief process. It might be a small one, it might be a bigger one, depending on how much emotional connection that you have to those clothes. So I walk people through that. It's different for every person, but sometimes it's a grief of a transition like mine, from I was an engineer and now I'm a creative entrepreneur, and it's a grief of that person. Sometimes it's a grief of, I used to be this size and now I'm this size for whatever reason, and how do I grieve that? Or it's a combination of, both of those things, or something else that's coming up, a grief of, I hate to pick on moms, but a lot of times I hear a lot of them like, well, my mom always told me I should wear this and this and this because of my body size. And I mean, our moms, they were doing the best that they could. And so I don't want to sound like I'm picking on them. And if you're a mom that fits in that category, listen to this show. I'm not picking on you. But sometimes those rules get ingrained and don't allow us to really have our wings fully spread because we're in this tiny little box that we've said, I cannot color outside of these lines. And your style is, I mean, it's your soul expression and it changes and it grows and it evolves and expands. And so just like we get to do that in our own personal development, like journey and growth and spiritual development, our clothes and our style are going to change. I mean, my style has changed in the last 3 years, and my style is constantly changing and evolving because I'm doing those things with myself too. I know you mentioned that earlier. And I'm like, yes, I take time to edit my closet. It's a continuous process. It's not something that's one and done, and then you never have to do it again. Because if that's the case, you might be want to look at where you staying in a rut and staying stuck, because that style is. I remember hearing one time a phrase, if you're not growing, you're dying. Think about plants or other things like that. And I know it might sound harsh, but like that's the cycle of life. If the plant is not growing, it's dying. If we're not growing, we're dying. And so something to think about.
Missy, I got to ask you this. I mean, you mentioned, of course, about moms playing an influence or how we're raised, whether it's mom or dad playing a role in what we deem fits our body type, our body style. And of course, let's be honest, my mom was very protective. Obviously, you need to wear this. If you obviously are, have a little bit of extra gifts to show to the world, no pun intended, if you catch my drift. And so I understand that they are obviously being mama bear to protect their young. So Missy, for you, what was the hardest outfit in your wardrobe that you found difficult to part with?
Oh, I think of a couple of things. That were difficult. Number one, a lot of those very professional clothes. Now, mind you, I still got blazers and shirts and like that, kind of stuff that I could put together. But the ones that were specifically purchased for my job, when I moved from that manufacturing floor to the, corporate offices, like that was part of that shedding that we've already talked about, of that identity of being this person. Like, what if I need those again? What if this doesn't work and I have to go back and then I have to rebuy all this stuff? This stuff is expensive. And the layer beneath that was, developing that self-trust. Like, those were the surface reasons of like, oh my gosh, like I might have to buy this again and it's expensive and da 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 da. But it was this is because I don't have trust in myself that I'm going to be able to figure out how this is gonna work. And then the other one that I will share, and I think this one is a very, very common. I had a dress that I bought specifically for my mom's funeral, because when my mom passed, I looked at everything that I had and I thought, I don't have anything good enough to wear to honor my mom. And so I went out and bought something new. And then, of course, I never wore it again either, because I didn't want to wear that again. It was a special thing. And it wasn't until like earlier this year that I finally was like, it's time to let that go. It's time to let that go. I let that stay in my closet as long as I needed it there. And then I don't know how to describe it. I just had this feeling like, okay, it's time to let that go. It surely did not fit me anymore. That's for sure. But it was like, no, I can let that go. It was like almost like a security blanket that I was keeping around, of like this last piece. And even I still have other things, but like this like last tangible piece connected to my mom. And I think for me, what it was really that I have learned to get in touch with her now as, a spiritual guide for me. So I'm like, I don't need to hold on to this physical, tangible piece anymore, because I've got this spiritual connection with her. And so I can let that go now. So those were the hardest ones to get rid of.
Missy, I can definitely relate to letting things go that were sentimental in that way.
Mm,
And you figure, obviously, my mom has only been transitioned a shorter period of time than yours. Obviously, November marks 4 months since my mom made her
yeah.
transition. And when I went through my closet, one of the hardest pieces that I found where I wrestled with letting go was one of the suits that my mom bought for me years ago.
Mm,
And it still fit me and everything. And of course, that's a whole nother topic for
mm,
a different day. And when things still fit you, but you don't find that you no longer fit or identify with its
mm,
style anymore.
mhm.
And I could just hear, and this is probably traumatic. I could hear my mom literally yelling at me, "Don't let it go. Don't let it go. You'll need it for a rainy day." And I'm like, quiet. No, we're not doing this. So sure enough, I put it in the garbage bag, shipped it off. I said, that's it.
Mm,
I no longer identify with happening to be this person who you wanted me to be that I no longer am. I no longer fit into this outfit. Yes, I still fit in it
mhm,
physically, but
mhm, mhm.
spiritually and to my soul, no pun intended, it was a pinstripe suit. So I'm no longer parallel with that outfit anymore. But I digress. So we're gonna take another quick break right here on Group Portia, everybody. Stick with us. We will be right back. All right, everybody, welcome back right here on Group Portia. Well, Missy, this was definitely a conversation worth the wait. I thank you so much for sharing so much food for thought with us, a way for us to stitch together and blend different pieces of our wardrobe into our life and to our sole purpose. Missy, I got to ask this. I mean, both of us are very passionate and driven
Mm,
by our
mm.
work in this world. And so, how do you, Missy, find that balance or blend between your passion for helping women to fully embody their wardrobe and feel that soul calling, that soul ringing, right? And also maintaining your own mental well-being in the mixture?
Ooh, that one is such a good question. It would be so, so easy to fall into a very hustle, work, 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 work schedule, just like I did in corporate, just like I did when I was in school and all of that. And it would feel different because I love this. And if you do that, you still end up at that place where you're going to get burnt out. And so, for me, that's been a huge journey of reprogramming because I was definitely raised in a in a family where we didn't sit down. We didn't slow down. You didn't take a break until the end of the day when all of the work was done. And if you were getting up on Saturday morning, we didn't watch cartoons in my house. You had activities or you were doing things, like it was just like constant motion. And so that's been a lot of healing work for me to know that rest is okay and I don't have to earn my rest. That rest isn't, earned by a full week or by signing up so many clients or doing so many jobs. That the rest gets to be a part of my everyday life. And the cool thing that I started to realize is that when I incorporate it into everyday life, rest doesn't mean an entire day. Well, okay, sometimes it does still, but it doesn't mean an entire day all the time of like sitting there paralyzed, feeling like I can't do anything and I can't get out of bed. Because I can remember days that I would call in sick because, I mean, mental health days were not a thing. I don't know, probably still aren't in corporate America. So I would call in sick. And many days I had a headache when this would happen. So like it wasn't totally false. But and then I would lay in bed and I would just not do anything. And this is also pre my daughter because that changes the whole dynamic of this. But I would like lay in bed and watch TV all day. And what I know now when I look back at those is like, oh, those were signs that my body was telling me to be like, hey, we're like burnt out over here. Like this isn't working. But it became a normal part of my cycle. And now rest can be taking a 10-minute nap in the afternoon while my daughter's in her nap time. Thank goodness she still takes a nap. I don't know what I'm going to do when she stops doing that. But, taking a 10 or 15-minute nap, taking time to do, my meditative work or, some sort of like somatic healing work. I do breath work stuff. I do EFT tapping stuff, taking 5 or 10 minutes to do that, taking a walk around the block, active rest, because that's definitely resting my mind, but getting me out in nature and getting me out of these like walls. Cause like I work mainly from home. I do a lot of virtual stuff. I'm getting more and more out, which I absolutely love, which is a whole nother topic. But there's days, especially if I'm doing a lot of virtual client stuff or working on my business, that I can stay in these like four walls, except for going to pick up my daughter from school and be like, oh, I haven't been outside today. Or, oh, I haven't been outside in a couple of days. And so that rest and really healing the patterns to this addictive performance-based perfectionism where I got to show the world how amazing I am and how much stuff I can get done and how perfect I am. And like realizing that as an addictive behavior was like a huge key for me, because when that was first posed to me, I was like, oh, you're right. Like, I love the praise that I get when people are like, you're so amazing. Like, you do all the things. How do you do it? I'm like, I wasn't doing it, but I was addicted to that, like, praise and recognition. And so then I kept trying to perform at that level. So recognizing that as, an addictive behavior was also super helpful, because then once you recognize something and you can bring it into that conscious space, then you can go out and you can start finding the tools that you need to heal that part. And like, why am I like this? But that recognition is so key.
Missy, I can relate to what you just mentioned. It's almost masking the pain, right? I was reading something on psychology today a few weeks ago where it talked about hidden signs of grief. And one of the things they brought up was sarcasm. And I tend to be very sarcastic when I am in a state of going through something in my life. And I really had to take a step back and be like, okay, Portia, are we being sarcastic to really enlighten our soul and to find humor in the day? Or are we posing sarcasm as a way to mask the deep hurt? And so I'm glad that you brought that up, Missy, because I think a lot of us unintentionally fall into that perfectionist, progressive, productivity driven algorithm, even as business owners. And I pulled away from corporate to get away from that high strung lifestyle that was depleting me. And I know it takes, again, some deep work to work through it. But I think the very first step is recognition, recognizing that this is a toxic behavioral pattern that I need to break. And how do
Yeah.
I do that? The first step is recognizing and then taking action. So thank you, Missy, for bringing that up. I truly appreciate that. Missy, we are going to be wrapping up here soon. And again, I just want to thank you for coming on and sharing so much with our listeners today, because I know that there's so many of us, women, business owners, even teenagers, who can
Mm-hmm.
really relate to having a wardrobe that does not suit their soul, that is occupying space, right? When we are in a season
Mm-hmm.
of growth, right? Growth is painful. Growing pains suck sometimes, but it's through the growth is where we're able to flourish and find our true calling in life. And as we both know, growth also comes with loss. There's people who can't go with us on our journey, just like there's some outfits that can't be in certain areas that we're in, because of course we're going to get probably the side eye stare, like, nobody's business. Do I need to go there? And so, Missy, for our listeners, I love to save this question for last. And like I said, I thank you again for coming on. You have left us with ways to shift our mindset when it comes to starting our day and picking the wardrobe to suit our soul. You have helped us to see that even though times get tough and we want to throw in the towel, and when we're posed with that crossroad of, hey, here's corporate weaseling its way in subliminally, but then here is our calling as an entrepreneur and creative, that we want to continue to stay on that path. But we know that circumstances happen where we might have to dibble and dabble in the corporate space for a minute. Missy, what words of inspiration can you leave with our listeners today? Whether it's someone who was once like you, pivoting from a space of being this corporate ladder accomplisher to now you're in your divine purpose and calling, or someone who's just ready to take that leap because
Mm,
they believe in their heart that the net will truly catch them.
mm. Yeah, the biggest thing that I can say is once you've recognized that, you're not going to be able to unrecognize it. It's not going to go away. And so the next best step is learning how to give yourself grace and accept what is. Through all of this, whether you're talking about clothes, changing jobs, changing course, all of that, the best thing that I have learned to do that has served me in countless areas of my life is that acceptance and forgiveness of myself, giving myself that grace to be like, oh, well, we did this, and it's great that it was. It was great that I had this career for 10 years, that I did nothing wrong in choosing to stay in it as long as I did. Sure, I could make a case for should have gotten it out of it earlier, but I didn't. And so that keeps you, and I think we talked about this at the very beginning, keeps you in that present moment to say, you know what? It happened. It was. And I did the best I could with the knowledge that I have. And now I have new knowledge. So I'm going to make a different choice. And that forgiveness and acceptance of self will get you so far. And the common misconception is, oh, like if I start accepting it, then I can't reach for these next goals. And that is absolutely false. The acceptance is not a rolling over. It is not letting yourself be a doormat to what is. It is saying this happened. I forgive myself. I fully accept myself. I love myself. And now where am I striving for next? And you're going to pick up like more and more things through that journey and expand and grow. But if you aren't accepting yourself first, you're going to be cutting yourself off from what you could. That's going to push you back into that hustle mode. That's going to push you back into that striving, that perfectionism. instead of keeping you in that present moment. So acceptance, present moment, like those two things go hand in hand.
100%. And Missy, I want to add to that. One of my coaches said it best. You can't handle what you can't measure.
Mm-hmm.
And it's so true. When I first heard that from my coach, I'm like, wait a minute, what does that mean? But it's so true. How can you handle something that you're not acknowledging?
Yeah.
And how can you really acknowledge it if you're absent from your own life?
Yeah. Yeah. So true.
Well, everybody, that was our personal stylist, Missy Baker, that you heard from. And that concludes another episode of Group Portia, everybody. Thanks for listening and have a great and awesome evening, everybody.